Traditionally, I've done on weekends or weekend mornings a series that is different than what I do on weekdays. Mainly because there are many people who cannot attend durus after Fajr except on weekends because of their work, and that's understandable, obviously, with difficult schedules. So if you attend all the weekends, then you'll, inshallah, walk away with a full series of a sort, and I usually do a tafsir of a surah. And because Ramadan this year started on a weekend, we're going to get potentially 10 weekend days, if it's 30 days, or 9 weekend days if it's 29 days, which is more number of weekends than we usually get. So I was able to choose a surah that's longer than what I usually choose every year, and we're going to do, inshallah ta'ala, or we're going to explain or reflect upon Surat Al-Saffat this year, inshallah ta'ala, throughout the weekend mornings, and it's around 7 pages in total. On weekdays, I'll be talking about, the series is called Tazkiyah Pearls. I'll be talking about aspects of Ihsan. Surah Al-Saffat is very much connected to this theme in terms of what it talks about in its essence. Now, Surah Al-Saffat, it exists within a group of surahs or a cluster from Al-Ahzab to Al-Zumar. And these surah, they all talk about the concept of istislam or ta'ah. They talk about the concepts of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And each surah looks at submission or obedience from a slightly different angle than the other surah does. And obviously, this concept requires a group of surahs to address because it's an extremely important one. In our deen, what is your deen really, aside from obedience or fellowship of the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That's really all it is. What we're trying to do on an ongoing basis is perform ta'ah, is obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's not something simple in our deen. It's actually the core aspect of what we are required to do. And because of that, we have these different surahs that talk about all the angles. And Surah Al-Saffat, I'm going to talk about the theme up front because I think it's really important. And then you can reflect upon, you can read the surah on your own and then reflect upon these meanings, and you'll find a lot to think about. I think the sisters have a Quran program, correct? Up front? Is there a tahfeel for the sisters? Am I right? Is Sister Sheikha Maria here or no? You have a halaqah? Yeah, so you guys are welcome to go. This takes around 45 minutes or so. So you guys are welcome to go anytime, and we can cut off the people. Yeah, they should come back so the sisters can go for their halaqah, and then we can cut the audio up front just to make it easier for them, because I don't think they want to sit here for 45 minutes. I think they want to go. Yeah, well, whoever wants to go can go, and then the brothers can come back, inshallah, just so it's not, so we're not holding up the girls. Surah Al-Saffat, it talks about istislam or ta'ah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regarding issues of ghaib, or ma la yudraku al-hikmatu minhu, or that which you do not understand why. This is what Surah Al-Saffat talks about. It's extremely specific. I have no other surah in the Quran that talks about this topic. Like, I don't have in the Quran other surahs that address this the way Surah Al-Saffat does, and that's why it's very unique, and that's why I chose it. Other surah will talk about an idea, but in the Quran you'll find another surah that's shorter, for example, or longer, that addresses a similar idea from a slightly different angle, but a similar idea. Surah Al-Saffat is very unique. It talks about something very specific. It's my ability or my obligation to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regarding something that is a part of the unseen, about the ghaib, something that I don't understand, that I cannot witness myself. I mean, I have no other evidence for it aside from His word subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have to be good on His word. He said that's how it is, then that's how it is. And I'm okay accepting that. In addition to that, when He gives me a command to do something and I don't fully understand why, and I will still do it. Now, this is very tricky, but it's also extremely important. We know al-ahkam mu'allalatun bimaqasidiha. A part of understanding our deen is that every ruling that we have in our deen is affiliated with the reasoning that is helping achieve an objective. Every ruling in Islam, the fuqaha and the usuliyun, they sit and they argue and they discuss this in depth. Every single ruling that we have There's a reason behind it that is helping us achieve an objective. There is no ruling that is just there for the sake of there being a ruling. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, مَا خَلَقَنَا السَّمَاءَ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا لَاعِبِينَ. He didn't create things in play. This is not a joke. لو أردنا أن نتخذ لهوا لاتخذناه من لدنا إن كنا فاعلين بل نقذف بالحق على الباطل. If he wanted to play around, he would have done that on his own terms, subhanahu wa ta'ala. He wouldn't make this story a part of it. Yeah. But he uses haqq subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove batil. But sometimes there will be a ruling, not that it lacks objective or lacks reasoning, it's just I don't have access to that yet. I don't know why. Like I can't figure that out. And that's okay. You have to be okay with that as a Muslim. That you're not always going to understand why. Sometimes things will happen to you and you won't be able to understand why. A part of Islam, of submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is being okay with that. As having the content, having rida, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give rulings, He will send decrees your way, and you won't always be able to understand it. You'll understand most of it, but some of them are not going to be clear, and you have to be okay with that. And I think this surah is important specifically in this age, because sometimes we're looking at Islam in a way that I don't think is the healthiest or the correct way. If the shaykh cannot explain exactly why, then I don't need to do it. Or if this doesn't make sense to me, then I don't need to follow it. No, forgive me, malish, just so that you don't misunderstand this story. We do what we do in Islam because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said so. That's why I do what I do. I came to my acceptance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through a different route. And we listen and we obey because He is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I have to obey. It just happens to be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made sure that every ruling that He put in His book has good reason and has benefit for you as a person. That is His karam subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is His generosity, that He chose not to tell you to do something for the sake of just telling you to do something. That's His choice. He could have chosen to do something different, but He didn't. It doesn't mean that I am entitled to an explanation for absolutely everything. No. There are certain things that are part of ghaib. It's just that's how it is. If I don't understand the hikmah and the wisdom and the reason now, I'll understand it at some other time in my life in the future, or Yawm al-Qiyamah when I come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what Surah Al-Saffat is going to address. Surah Al-Saffat is going to talk about a lot of issues of ghaib and give you examples of people who were told to do things, and at the time, we're going to hear the story of Nuh alayhi salam. Nuh was told to build a ship in the middle of a desert on top of a mountain. For hundreds of years. For hundreds of years he had to do this. He didn't ask a question. Not a question. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, put seeds in the ground because a tree is going to come out one of those seeds 25 years from now. You're going to chop it down and make the ship from it. You're going to spend the entirety of your life building this ship in the middle of a desert. You can't see water in any direction. There's no water. And he did it. You're going to find the story of Nuh. You're going to find the story of people who were told by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do this. And they said, Hal, amrak ya Rabb. Sam'an wa ta'atan ya Rabb. You said to do it, I will do it. I don't understand exactly why right now, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. It's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us with rulings that have reason, that have benefit, because we trust His wisdom subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we're told to do something, we don't understand why, we trust Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're okay with it. We'll do it anyways. This is a part of your submission, of your Islam. A part of your Islam. There's a chunk of your Islam where you accept what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches you. And even if you don't fully understand it at the moment. Very, very important. That's why I chose this, because we're living in a time where we sometimes feel we're entitled to an explanation for everything. No, that's not how it really works. I'm going to explain why as we go along, because there's a certain degree, there's a certain importance to this and significance to it. If you build your iman, and forgive me for this long introduction, but it's important so this surah actually flows nicely for you. If you build your iman on the fact that the shaykh is capable of explaining every single ruling for you, you're going to lose your iman. That's not what you build your iman on. You arrive at the acceptance of La ilaha illallah through your observation of the universe, through your observation of life, from your observation of history, from your observation of your personal experiences. All of the arrows from all four sources are are pointing clearly towards La ilaha illallah. And those are constants. The universe does not change its mind in the morning and decide for things to look different. History does not change overnight. Life does not change its source in biology overnight. These are constants. You build your iman on something that is solid. And once you arrive at La ilaha illallah, and you arrive at Muhammad Rasulullah, then whatever is said in this book for you is Quran, right? You take it religiously. We use these terms. You accept. This is what he taught subhanahu wa ta'ala. It just happens to be that he gave every single ruling with good reason for it. And that's something that makes us even more loving to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like alhamd ya Rabb. That you didn't. He says this in the Quran, other place. وَلَوْ أَنَّا كَتَبْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ أَنِ اقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ أَوْ اخْرُجُوا مِنْ دِيَارِكُمْ مَا فَعَلُوهُ إِلَّا قَلِيلٌ مِّنْهُمْ. And if we had commanded them to kill yourselves or remove yourselves from your countries, no one would have done it. But he's trying to say, subhanahu wa ta'ala, I never told you to do something that made no sense. I only told you to do things that was helpful to you. But you didn't. But you're not listening to the stuff that are actually helpful to you. I could have told you to do things that were not helpful to you. La ilaha illahu. This is you find this all throughout the Quran. In Surah Muhammad, at the end of Surah Muhammad, he says, وَلَا يَسْأَلْكُمْ أَمْوَالَكُمْ إِن يَسْأَلْكُمُوهَا. He never asked you for all of your wealth, he says, subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm not asking you for all of your wealth. I'm asking you for a small amount to give, fi sabilillah. إِن يَسْأَلْكُمُوهَا. If he were to ask you for all of your wealth, فَيُحْفِكُمْ, making you completely poor, تَبْخَلُوا, you would have been cheap and not done it. وَيُخْرِجَ أَضْغَانَكُمْ, when he showed all of the diseases of the heart. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us to give all of our wealth, could we say no? Am I at liberty to say no? No, I have to do it. He didn't ask me for that. Had he asked me for that, I would have shown all of my true colors of stinginess and lack of obedience. But he only asked me for that which was beneficial for the community and for myself. So why don't I listen? Why am I not listening if all he is telling me to do, subhanahu wa ta'ala, is within my best interest at all times? That is his generosity. So if you understand that and you trust that, then you will accept what he teaches us in Surah Al-Saffat, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we're going to start, inshallah ta'ala, by reciting the verses. Surah Al-Saffat is a Makki surah. It's one of the mid-Makki surahs. This is a concept that the Sahaba learned early on. First 5 to 6 years of the prophecy of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, this surah was revealed, and they learned this concept of taslim, of istislam, of obedience and submission to Allah, knowing that some things we will not understand, and we're okay with that. You have to be comfortable with your ignorance of certain things. You have to be comfortable with not being able to. If you're not, then there's a certain degree of arrogance that exists there that has to be fixed. For you to say, no, I am entitled to understanding everything. Really? You have that intellectual faculty. You have the ability to comprehend all. MashaAllah. Where did you get this from? Where did you get the thought that you have the ability, the innate ability to understand all that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put together? All of this huge web, this huge network of existence, you have the ability to understand it all. Allahumma salli ala nabi. MashaAllah. Where have you been all these years? Scientists will spend 60 years of their lives, 60 years of thinking. Newton, after he died, his bed, there's a pillow, and the pillow was indented. This guy he never washed his bed in his life. It was the filthiest room they had ever seen. This man, he's just thinking. You know what? To conclude that gravity's there. To conclude that if you do this and go down, that's because of. This is the human mind. It takes all that just to figure out. There's an actual force pulling us down. It's not just happening. For me to believe or feel that I am entitled to understanding everything, to feel that I have the ability to comprehend everything. La. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzah amma yasifun. That's what at the end of the surah he'll tell us this. He'll remind us of this. He is the Lord of Izzah. He is the Aziz. He's the unfathomable. You don't understand. You can't understand him. If you could understand him, he wouldn't be God anymore. If you could break him down intellectually, even he wouldn't be Allah. The whole point, he's Allah because you don't have that ability. Because we can't fathom who he is, the essence of the Lord himself, subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to be comfortable with that. Comfortable with the unknown. Accepting that humbleness is helpful. It allows you to actually learn that which you can learn. It allows, there's ilm mawjood and there's ilm mafqood in this world. As Imam al-Tahawi says in his Aqidah, when he teaches this, there is knowledge that is available and there's a knowledge that is not available. فَمَنْ تَتَبَّعَ الْعِلْمَ الْمَفْقُودِ فَقَدَ الْعِلْمَ الْمَوْجُودِ. And if you run after that which you cannot understand, you will lose access to that which you could have understood in the beginning. So we'll start inshallah reciting the surah bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. I'm going to try to make it to 19. I have it broken down. I'm never good at doing these things, but inshallah ta'ala we'll complete the surah within 9 sessions. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والصافات صفا. So a 6 count, right? Because when you look at a med and there's a shadda on the letter that comes after the med, it's always a 6 count. So it's the longest in the Quran. فَالزَّاجِرَاتِ زَجْرًا. فَالتَّالِيَاتِ ذِكْرًا. إِنَّ إِلَٰهَكُمْ لَوَاحِدٌ. رب السماوات والأرض وما بينهما ورب المشارق. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins the surah with a qasam, with oaths. Oaths that he takes similarly within the Quran, and it's almost trademarked for the Quranic way of taking oaths. And he's taking an oath subhanahu wa ta'ala right off the bat by malaika. And malaika are a part of ghaib. You're going to see the first page is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just pointing out all of the different aspects of ghaib, of the unseen, that you don't have access to. The only knowledge you have about them are whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you about them. So he begins by taking an oath by the malaika. وَالصَّافَّاتِ صَفًّا. And I swear by those who stand in line, one line in front of the other or after the other perfectly. As-saff. Similar to what we do here. And then the Prophet ﷺ tells us, the malaika تَصُفُّ عِنْدَ رَبِّهَا. The malaika, they stand in sufuf in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يَسْجُدُونَ لِلَّهِ وَيُسَبِّحُونَ اللَّهَ وَيُمَجِّدُونَ اللَّهَ حَتَّى تَقُومَ السَّاعَةِ فَإِذَا قَامَتِ السَّاعَةِ قَالُوا سُبْحَانَكَ مَا عَبَدْنَاكَ حَقَّ عِبَادَتِكَ. They will stand in lines for all of eternity, all of time. Sujood and ruku' and salah and recitation until Yawm al-Qiyamah. And then when Yawm al-Qiyamah happens, they turn to Allah and say, we, Subhanak, exalted you are you. We have not worshipped you even remotely close to what you deserve to be worshipped, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he's taking an oath by something you and I don't see, but exist. The Bayt al-Ma'mur, which is the equivalent of the Kaaba in whatever realm that you and I are not a part of ghaib. Every day, 70,000 of the malaika will perform tawaf. لا يعودون إلى قيام الساعة. They do it once, and that's it. They never do it again until the day of judgment. Because there's another 70,000 that need to do it again, and then another 70,000 that need to do it. That's it. They get one time, once a lifetime. Because there's just no time. There's too many of them. وَالصَّافَّاتِ صَفًّا فَالزَّاجِرَاتِ زَجْرًا. And the ones that repel, zajr is when you force something in a direction against its will, or whether it likes it or not. That's what zajr means. And we do use this term when a teacher is pushing a student, or when someone's walking with his animal and he's pushing it in a certain direction. فَالزَّاجِرَاتِ زَجْرًا. Most scholars see this be referring to the malaika moving the clouds, or the malaika moving the different pieces of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's universe in whatever direction Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants it to be moved. Which is more generic, and it makes more sense to me for the meaning of this surah. فَالزَّاجِرَاتِ زَجْرًا. And the ones that repel, or the ones that compel is the word. The ones that compel whatever Allah created to whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. The repetition of each word here is to say that they do it, and they do it perfectly. What does that mean? So if you attend one of the Arabic lectures for Shaykh al-Janabi, he'll talk to you about something called maf'ul mutlaq. So, akala ta'aman, he ate food. But if you say akala aklan, he ate. Aklan here means he really ate. But مثلا ضرب فلانا, he hit him. ضربه ضربا, He hit him. Oh, he hit him properly. Like he did. I watched it. It was it was perfect. It was yani, it was a symphony. It was important. So whenever in Arabic you repeat the word, the action. So here is Saffat. It's not actually a verb, but it functions within the sentence similarly to a verb. So the repetition of Saffa after it means the ones that stand in line, and they stand in line perfectly. Not like our lines, where my cliche doesn't mean anything anymore. Your toes on the first part of the dark gray line, closed gap, straight in line. It's like ma fi faida. It's like it's whatever the sheikh. And I look at the person and he's standing completely outside of the line, way ahead or way behind. Ya sheikh, just look around at the saf. Make sure the saf is mustawi. It's a part of our ibadah, is making sure that our lines are straight. Why? Because it reflects our brotherhood. It reflects the equality that exists within our deen. The physical mimics the spiritual, and the spiritual mimics the physical. So when our lines aren't straight, that means spiritually our hearts are not on the same level, and our hearts are not equal, and we're not brothers and sisters appropriately. So we make sure the physical is perfect, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may grant the spiritual to us, right? فَالزَّاجِرَاتِ زَجْرًا. And the ones that compel Allah's creation into whatever Allah wants, they compel it properly. فَالتَّالِيَاتِ ذِكْرًا. And I swear by the ones that recite the dhikr, recite the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the invocation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether this is referring to the Quran, that the malaika recite more than we do, or it's referring to the general invocation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's all the same. So he's making oaths, taking oaths subhanahu wa ta'ala by the malaika, and their functions that are a part of the world of al-ghayb that we don't understand. How do you know that the malaika exist? What source do you have aside from the Quran that tells you this? Are there papers that you have read recently in any credible journal that talks about the effects of malaika? No. This is something that you accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's word for. This is what he explained. This is what it is. Then they are malaika. I don't see them. I'm not in contact with them. This is very connected to Ramadan. Ramadan is that 1 month a year where ghayb and shahada, they come together. You are now, within this time, the doors of Jannah are open. The gates of hell are closed. The shayateen are removed. There's a voice calling upon the people of khayr to come to it. It's happening right now as we sit here. It's a part of this story that we're these 30 days. We can't hear it with our ears, smell it with our noses, or see it with our eyes, but we know what's going on. And our spirits are sensitive to it as well. We just have to get in touch with them. We just have to get in touch with who we are a little bit more, and then we'll be able to be more sensitive to it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to us about the malaika. We don't see them, but they're there. We're not a part of that story, but it's happening. He takes these oaths, وَالصَّافَّاتِ فَالزَّاجِرَاتِ فَالتَّالِيَاتِ. And the answer of the oath, إِنَّ إِلَهَكُمْ لَوَاحِدٌ. The ultimate divine reality. The ultimate divine reality is that indeed your deity, your creator, your ilah, the one that's worthy of worship is one. إِلَهَكُمْ لَوَاحِدٌ. This is the ultimate divine reality. Out of all of the realities that we have in this world, La ilaha illallah is the most important. And interestingly enough, the shahadat al-tawheed, La ilaha illallah, exists in the Quran twice, in its full form. La ilaha illahu is everywhere, it's all over. But La ilaha illallah in the Quran twice in the whole Quran. Once in Surah Muhammad, sallallahu ala Muhammad, which is appropriate, and the second one in Surah Al-Saffat. We're going to recite on the second page, inshallah ta'ala. Inna ilahakum lawahid. Indeed, your Lord, your Creator, your worshipped one is but one. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is an aspect of ghayb. Who's the ultimate ghayb? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Out of all the ghuyub, all of that which is unseen to us, the one that is most significant, most magnificent, the one that is most important to all of us is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the reality about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is most important to all of us is that He is but one. He has no associate. There's no one else. It's one. You are accountable, akhi wa ukhti, to one. You're accountable to one. That's it. No one else. Think about this. You're not accountable to a board. You're not accountable to a court of law with judges. No, you're accountable to one. There's only one who has the right to question you, Yawm al-Qiyamah. No one else does. Everyone else is equal to you. And you are equal to them. They don't have capacity to hold you accountable for anything. It's only the Wahid al-Ahad subhanahu wa ta'ala who will hold us accountable. He and He alone will hold us accountable, Jalla Jalaluhu. And this is the piece of understanding our deen that is core. That my freedom is real because I am only submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I offer up my free will to only one, to Allah. That's what Tawheed is. Your free will, this gem, this gift, this amazing ability to think and then decide, you give it up to no one. No one. You give it up to no one. Doesn't matter who the person is. The Prophet ﷺ did not ask for people to give up their free will to himself, but they give up their free will to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then, as he always does subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, whenever the ask is big, he describes himself a little bit. Whenever the ask is huge, because he's asking for submission in this surah, he's asking for us to accept his ruling and his decree on that which we don't see, or that which we do not understand the wisdom behind. That's a big ask, it's a huge ask. So he describes himself. Indeed, your Lord is but one. رَبُّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا وَرَبُّ الْمَشَارِقِ The Lord, the caregiver of the cosmos and the earth and everything in between, and the caregiver of the mashariq, of the points of light. Al-Mashriq is not just a point of sunrise. Al-Mashriq is a point of light. It's where light comes from. So isn't that why we use the word Ishraq? So Mashriq is used as the east because it is the point of light. You're sitting at, imagine people before modern technology. You're sitting, it is dark, it is very dark, and it's scary when it's dark. And you're not comfortable, you're not safe, and you're looking at the east waiting for the source of light. You're waiting for the first beam to come out. Once the beam comes up, you can see again, and you can feel safe again. And that light will it will grant you all the vitamin D that you need. It will grant you the guidance you can move. It will grant you the energy. It will allow life to exist so that you can walk around the earth and enjoy things. He is the caregiver of the cosmos and the earth and everything between them. And he is the Lord and the caregiver of every point of light. Subhanallah, the points of light. This is going to, remember this, because as I go through the surah, we'll refer back to it again. We'll refer back to this one wording a couple of times. Rabbul Mashariq. He is the one who brings forward the light. Light comes from him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. He takes care of him. We continue, inshallah. That's the first. So the first piece, the first little piece. Two aspects of ghaib. Number one, malaika. Number two, the oneness of Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and his description. We continue. إِنَّا زَيَّنَّا السَّمَاءَ الدُّنْيَا بِزِينَةٍ الْكَوَاكِبِ. So look at the tanween. بِزِينَةٍ الْكَوَاكِبِ بِزِينَةٍ الْكَوَاكِبِ. There are other recitations for this, but for us, Hafs and Asim and Tariq al-Shatibi is بِزِينَةٍ الْكَوَاكِبِ. Okay? All right. وَحِفْظًا مِّن كُلِّ شَيْطَانٍ مَارِدٍ. لا يسمعون إلى الملأ الأعلى. ويقذفون من كل جانب. دحورا. ولهم عذاب واصب. إلا من خطف الخطفة فأتبعه شهاب ثاقب. فاستفتهم أهم أشد خلقا أم من خلقنا. إنا خلقناهم من طين لازب. So I'll explain these and we'll stop here today, inshallah. And inshallah tomorrow we'll be a bit quicker. So he says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, indeed we have adorned the sky. As-sama' ad-dunya is the sky that we can see. And al-hayat ad-dunya, obviously, is the life that is based on instincts. And the word dunya means it's lower level. It's closer. So al-hayat ad-dunya is a problem because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes it in a negative way because it's referring to people who live life based on only their instincts. I mean, they don't see themselves to be more than just mammals that graze and eat and drink and reproduce and then die. So it's not something that is positive. As-sama' ad-dunya is not something that is negative. It's just something that is close by, so we see it. So this is what we see. We don't see the other samawat. Number 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, 6. All you're seeing when NASA sends out the probe into the middle of space and sends out everything that we know of the observable universe is just as-sama' ad-dunya. It's the observable sky, the sky that is dunya that we have access to. Everything else is not. As-samawat as-sab', everything above 1 is not something that we have the ability to see. It's a realm that we're not in at this time and we don't have access to. So he says, indeed, we have adorned this observable, visible sky. Bizina, with adornments, al-kawakib, the planets and stars. Arab use the word kawakib to describe everything that is not the moon or the sun within the sky. So the sun has a name and the moon has a name. Everything else is called kawkab, whether it's a star or whether it's not a star, like it's just a planet. And then the Quran breaks this down a little bit more in other surahs and kind of points out that some of them are fiery beings and they're granting light, and some of them are not and just reflecting light. But the word kawkab in general for Arab just means the whatever planets or stars exist up in the universe and within the sky that the Arab focused on a lot. Living in the desert, you have access to a full sky. And it's a clear sky for most time. If you're living in parts of the world where it's always cloudy, I haven't looked up, I think, in 5 months. I don't think I've looked up for 5. There's nothing to see. It's the same thing, right? So you live in certain parts of the world where it's really not. There's not much to look at. The Arab, you're living in the middle of the desert. There's rarely any. If there is a cloud, people would go and follow it, because if it's not going to grant you rain, then the cloud will grant a little bit of shade. And if the cloud is going in the right direction, then you can enjoy that shade for as long as you move. But the Arab had access to the beautiful sky, and they stared at the night sky for thousands of years. And the majority of stars in the sky are named Arab names until this day. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about something that's not of the unseen. It's al-kawakib. We see this, but He's talking about how what you see up there has a function for you that you observe and you appreciate, which is zina. He beautified the night sky for you to see the magnificence of His creation, subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's adorned. The sky is beautiful. It's filled with glitter. It's just filled with all these stars and planets. And they serve that purpose for you from an observable universe perspective. But from al-ghayb, they have a different function. وَحِفْظًا مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْطَانٍ مَارِدٍ. They are protection from every rebellious shaitan. Every jinn that does not believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or does not obey is called shaitan. Marid is one that is rebellious. Tamarrud is rebellion in Arabic. Marid is one that does not listen, does not follow the rules. So those stars that you see in the sky, they have a function that is a part of our world, which is their zina. And there's a function that we don't understand. We don't know about it. We don't understand that function. The function has to do with shayateen. What are they doing? لا يسمعون, and that's how it's recited. لا يسمعون, right? So you put the shadda on the sin and the shadda on the meme. Usually it's لا يستمعون, but then if you remove the ta, you can do idgham, and then the sin and meme will both have a shadda on them. لا يسمعون إلى الملأ الأعلى. They do not or cannot listen to what's being said in the upper realm. وَيُقْذَفُونَ مِنْ كُلِّ جَانِبٍ, and they're being bombarded from every side. So prior to the Prophet ﷺ's bi'tha, prior to his time, shayateen would listen to what the malaika are talking about in a certain realm of the haqq, of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed. They would take that and then they would go and it would be given to kahana and sahara. So when we talk about sorcery and magic, before the Prophet ﷺ's time, this happened. They were able to hear things and then bring it back to the sorcerers and to the magicians and the sahara. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, at least 6 different places, talks about how that is not possible anymore. At least in 6 different parts of the Quran, He points out how it's absolutely, they can't do it anymore. How we are so riddled with sihr and jinn and in our community is beyond my ability to comprehend. And it's at this point, I have very little tolerance to it. All you have to do is read the Quran. لا يسمعون إلى الملأ الأعلى. They don't have access to hear what's being said in the upper realms. وَيُقْذَفُونَ, and they are being bombarded min kulli janib, from every single direction. Duhura, being destroyed. Dahr in war is when one army absolutely annihilates the other army. Duhura, in a form of complete destruction. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ وَاصِبٌ. And what's waiting them is a never-ending punishment on the Day of Judgment, as in Yawm al-Qiyamah. So the rebellious shayateen that go and try to listen, they are bombarded by one of these that you see up there. They have a different function in Alam al-Ghayb. They're destroyed immediately. They're bombarded from every direction, and they're annihilated, and they're going to be punished Yawm al-Qiyamah. إِلَّا مَنْ خَطِفَ الْخَطَفَ. Except those who are able to hear a word. Al-Khatf is to kidnap something, or to take something really quickly. Like it's based on a quick movement. Al-Khatf is if something, and I pull it really quickly. Al-Khatf, إِلَّا مَنْ خَطِفَ الْخَطْفَ. Except amongst them, those who are capable of stealing a piece of information. فَأَتْبَعَهُ شِهَابٌ ثَاقِبٌ. And what will follow him is a shihab. A shihab is a meteor. ثَاقِب, that is piercing, meaning it will destroy him immediately. فَأَتْبَعَهُ شِهَابٌ ثَاقِبٌ. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Alam al-Ghayb. I don't know about that, right? Except if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't explain this to me, I have no idea. I just look at the sky and I see beautiful stars. They're nice little lights, and I get to see, if Muhammad Mubin comes and shows us Jupiter or Saturn or something, it's beautiful. You get to see what's up there. It's absolutely amazing what exists, how huge it is. The enormity of it is beyond my brain to understand. I can't understand when you start telling me 1,000,000 light years. What does that mean? I live 100 years. If I am, I don't even live that. 100 years is what I can't even live that. You're telling me 1,000,000 light years? What does that mean? What's a light year? Is how much time, how much space light will cover in a year? It takes a couple of minutes from the sun here. 1,000,000, what is this? The human brain, yes, the number is there. And yes, you can break it down, but I don't have the ability to understand what you're talking about. I can't imagine this. I have to be in a different position. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to pull me out of this body and show me something, because I can't understand this. Which is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did for the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, did for Ibrahim. He pulled them out, let them take a look. Here, see what we've done. وَكَذَلِكَ نُرِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ مَلَكُوتَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَلِيَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُوقِنِينَ. Ibrahim was shown the enormity of his creation. Okay, this is beyond my ability. But I don't know that these kawakib have another function, but they do. They have another function. They follow the shayateen that try to bring information. So the shayateen the whole problem of sihr and the issue of astrology and the issue of connection with the other universe and finding information. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, read the Quran. Who do you believe? Do you believe? There are some narrations from the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam that are misunderstood or misused to try and trump what we're reciting in the Quran. Always go by the clarity of the Quran. Always go by what the Quran is stating very clearly. The Quran is saying there is no hifdhan. His protection doesn't work, subhanahu wa ta'ala, so they're still getting it. Hifdhan, these kawakib are protecting from every rebellious shaitan. Those who try to listen, they can't listen. They are bombarded, they're destroyed. And those who steal a piece of information are followed with a piercing meteor, and they're destroyed immediately. It's a part of ghaib. We accept, we submit, we accept and submit. This is what you've created, Ya Rabb. We've accepted what you say, Ya Rabb. But he told us both. He said there's duality here. It's zina, it's adornment for you, so look and enjoy. But they also do something else. And he tells us about it, subhanahu wa ta'ala, so we don't waste time with superstition in our lives. So we don't waste our times with superstition, accepting things that existed maybe before his life, alayhi salatu wasalam, but don't exist today. فَاسْتَفْتِهِمْ. We'll end with that, inshallah ta'ala. So ask them, the people who refuse to listen to you. This is directed towards the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam as a command. فَاسْتَفْتِهِمْ. Ask them the question. Istifta is from fatwa. When you ask for a ruling or you ask for an opinion. فَاسْتَفْتِهِمْ. Ask these people who don't listen to you. أَهُمْ أَشَدُّ خَلْقًا. Are they more powerful in their essence of creation? أَمَّنْ خَلَقَنَا. Or the ones that I just talked about. Or the ones that he just talked about, subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the verses. As in Saffat Saffa. Or as in the Al-Kawakib. Or as in the Shayateen. Who's more powerful? Who's stronger? You can go up to the realm and listen and eavesdrop on the malaika. You can make it as far as to one of these stars in the sky. You understand? No, we're very. Inna khalaqnahum. Indeed, we created them min teen lazib, from sticky mud. Lazib is sticky. Teen is mud. Min teen. We're created from sticky mud. What am I doing? Based on what am I objecting to the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala? Based on what do I sit here from my sticky mud origin, say, well, this doesn't make, I don't understand, I need. He said it subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed. You accept. This is what your submission means. This is what Islam is. Islam is submission, is acceptance. Yes, Ya Rabb, قُلْتَ فَقَوْلُكَ الْحَقِّ. You said, and your word is the truth. And I accept your truth, Ya Rabb. I have no objection to your truth. And I don't question your truth. Subhanak, Ya Rabb, Subhanak. This is the concept of being Muslim. This is the difference between you as a Muslim and others who follow other faiths or don't follow faith altogether. It's because you accept him, you submit to his will, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the question that the Prophet ﷺ took to the people, to the disbelievers of Mecca, asked them, أَهُمْ أَشَدُّ خَلْقًا? Are they more powerful in the essence of their creation, or the أَمَّنْ خَلَقَنَا, or the different creations that we have talked about here? No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not grant us strength in the essence of our creation. Like the sticky mud is not strong. Other aspects of you are. That free will is. That free will, the ability to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to listen, to accept, to submit to his will subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though you don't have to, that is where your power lies. Your power does not lie in the physical, it lies in the spiritual. Your strength does not lie within your physical, it lies within your spiritual. You can build whatever muscles you want. No matter how many muscles you have, you're limited to how much you can go. An elephant will still have his way with you. You're not going to be able to do much with that. Any random wild animal will rip us to shreds. It's not the physical where we have our strength. Amman khalaqna. No, what you created, Ya Rabb, is stronger. Even those that are created from sticky mud like us, we're not stronger than them. But there's something else about you that is very powerful, that is very meaningful, that he's going to talk about subhanahu wa ta'ala within Surah Al-Saffat and point out to you, so that you tap into that. You tap into the power that you derive from him, subhanahu wa ta'ala, not from the mud that we come from. I'll end with that, inshallah ta'ala. We'll continue tomorrow. Subhanakallah bihamdik, shadu la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. Jazakumullah khair, barakallahu fikum. Inshallah, the weekend will be from 40 to 45 minutes, inshallah, the dars. And on the weekdays will be around 20 minutes, inshallah.